Hello, everyone. Welcome to Voices of Change. I'm your host, Tex Wambui, and today we have a special episode. We have a special guest here today. We'll be talking about different things and different topics. We are in Puerto Rico, so shout out to that. So we are going to be talking about a few things today. And before we begin, though, I would like for our guests to do an introduction to themselves and tell the world who they are. And yeah, hi.
Yeah,
How are you doing today?
good. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Yasmina Benslimane. I'm originally from Morocco, living here in Puerto Rico for the past 4 years. I'm a feminist and climate justice activist. I lead a nonprofit called Politics for Her that advocates for inclusive participation of young women and girls in leadership and decision making. And I am also the co-founder of Climate Sirens, which is a tech social enterprise that focuses on partnering with women's cooperatives all over North Africa and the Southwest Asia region, among many other things, but mainly to decolonize climate justice and decision-making spaces in making sure that young voices and young women of color in particular are included in every step of the way.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful introduction. Saves me the energy of having to say all those wonderful things you've done. But before we begin, we are going to start off with the word of the week. This week's word is pulse, because this episode is about listening to the pulse of communities in crisis and the pulse of voices that push back and push forward. So let's start with the voice yourself. Before platforms and recognitions, what sparked your voice? When did you realize your words could influence policy or hold systems accountable, locally, nationally, and also like all around the world?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. So I was raised by a single mother in Morocco. So from a very early age, I saw how the system, the laws were against women, and the stigma of society as well, of seeing a young woman divorcee with the two girls, two daughters. Everything was set in a way that it was against us. But even though it was against us, my mom always taught me to not only be humble, but that the more you give, the more you receive. So I would very often go with her to the countryside, to rural, remote areas, to visit families that were living in a single room, that didn't have beds, that didn't have much to offer, but still welcomed us with open arms, with tea, with sweets, with anything they had. So seeing that girls my age were not able to go to school, girls my age were sent to rich families to work as little maids, or seeing that I used to go fishing every single morning because I grew up by the ocean. Seeing that the oceans were getting more and more empty from fishes or from octopus or whatever I used to see. Now I don't fish, I'm vegan, so it's different.
Oh, wow.
But basically, like seeing with my own eyes also the deterioration of our beaches. And the first time I did the beach cleanup, I was only 6. I came back from Dubai because I grew up there. Then my parents divorced, so we went back to Morocco. And I see that the beach was so dirty, and it was not something we were used to in Dubai, because it was fine to litter.
Oh, wow. I did
And
not know that.
no, yes, it was very strict. So my sister and I go back to Morocco. We see very dirty beaches, and we start cleaning. And my mom would tell us, "Stop! You can't clean the entire beach. It will take you days." But it's very based on lived experience, seeing all these injustices, but also seeing the loss of our biodiversity, of our natural habitats, and being in close proximity to animals as well. I hated the Eid celebration, Eid al-Adha, because they used to sacrifice the sheep.
Yeah.
So I stopped eating meat when I was 15. I started learning about feminism around that age as well. I started being involved in Model UN and different clubs at the high school level. So I started from when I was in high school to do extracurricular activities as well, to support young women and girls that didn't have the same chances as I did, and just to start doing the work that I did with one thing in mind, that I will become a politician or a diplomat.
Wow. Okay.
But things change.
We share similarities then.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, on the diplomatic side of it.
You still want that?
Yes, it's something that I'm still
For
pushing and
Kenya.
inspiring too. I will, depending on wherever it is, right now I'm still trying to develop my language skills.
Yes.
I'm conversational in Spanish. Funny enough, I'm able to kind of get by right now in Puerto Rico. So
Yay!
good. So if I never know, never know.
Love it.
So yeah, but you have the platform Politics for Her, which is
Yeah.
a very powerful platform
Thank you.
and movement, and I'm really inspired by it. So what did you envision when you launched it, and how has it evolved from the idea you
Yeah.
had to where it is now?
Yeah, thank you so much. So Politics for Her started as a blog when I was studying for my master's in Costa Rica. I went there to study at the United Nations University for Peace, studied international law after getting my undergrad in political science. When I studied political science, I realized how the field was extremely male dominated, that everything we learned was from men's perspectives, that also even the idea of democracy was a very Western construct. So that did not necessarily apply to my views or my lived experience as an African. So as I wanted to show that young women were more than just their physical attributes. At a time where social media was also booming, everyone was focused on traveling or fitness or beauty blogging. So I thought, I'm a young woman. I want to show that young women that come from Africa are also educated, that we're not necessarily just about beauty and fitness. And I love makeup and all of that, but I'm not just about that. I didn't feel represented. And it's also very personal because, in my region, when I was in high school in the 2010, 2011, 2012, there was the Arab uprisings. So in Morocco, we had the change of constitution. Across the entire region, North Africa, Southwest Asia, there was regime changes. And how did these happen? Through digital technologies. Young people started mobilizing online, and then they would gather to protest, and then it brought democratic changes. So inspired by that, I saw the power of digital platforms. So I thought I'll start as a blog and I will share my articles, my views. And at first I was hesitant, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, but I just did it. And when I started posting, a lot of young women would reach out to me and say, wow, finally I see a platform where I can relate. I'm passionate about international relations and politics, but I've never seen this not only with a feminist and youth perspective, but also a more global majority perspective. So I was highlighting a lot of the countries that they did not necessarily made mainstream media or legacy media headlines. And that's attracted a very similar crowd in the sense that we feel seen, we feel represented, and we feel powerful.
How have you been able to maintain that clarity, that impact, especially with kind of the presence right now with online and stuff? Some people are skeptical about certain things. How have you been able to kind of ensure that there's clarity and impact in what you're actually doing?
Well, it's very, again, centered on lived experience. So the only reason why it is where it is thanks to the team, the volunteers. What started as me alone expanded to over 100 volunteers from all across the world. We built different regional hubs. So it's very grassroots focused. It's the young women from the region that speak about themselves and speak about their experiences. And of course, with that comes the training and the focus on digital activism rather than journalism or mainstream narratives. So it's all about amplifying voices. I created that platform and then I stepped down and told, this is for you. It's all of us. It's ours because this mission is bigger than me. Politics for Her will keep on going even when I'm gone.
Yes.
That's what it should be. When you create something, it should always be with a bigger mission than yourself, and it's for the collective. So the only reason why it is what it is today is thanks to the amazing young women in all their diversity that are sustaining and maintaining the great thing that is Politics for Her today.
That is so inspiring, honestly. And then I remember when we first met. We met at the YCLC conference in LA, and that was a really great experience actually for me to be exposed to people who kind of have similar things, people who we share perspectives. And we were there because of climate and environment. So let's kind of shift our conversation now into, the crisis of energy and climate, certainly right now in Puerto Rico. You've lived here for a few years. And Puerto Rico has become a global case study in energy injustice. And since Lumer Energy took over the grid in 2021, outages have increased.
Yes.
Reliability has dropped and public trust has deteriorated. And in 2024, Puerto Ricans experienced an average of 1,432 minutes
Yeah.
of service interruption per customer. And actually, a few days ago, before we got here, there was that blackout that happened,
Yeah.
which
Again,
was it's ironic that it happened. And also, it's kind of above the 102-minute benchmark for
Yeah.
blackouts when it happens. And also in December 2024, I found
I
this
was
out.
there.
1.3 million people lost power in the near total blackout.
Yeah.
That
New
is,
Year's Eve.
there's a lot of anger, I'm pretty sure, with
Yeah.
that. But also, I think it creates a lot of exhaustion
Yeah.
for the people and how they're doing. So, what do you hear on the ground from the communities you're close to?
Yeah.
What is the emotional toll of this instability, and kind of your experience with it?
It's exhausting, and for a lot of people that rely on it for survival, food, if you buy groceries, it will get bad. For people that have health conditions and that rely on energy to survive, for people that rely on it to work, or businesses that get shut down because they don't have generators, it's usually big corporations or those that have the means to get big generators that can allow themselves to stay open even during power outages. But the majority of the people, and not just in San Juan area, but all across the island, especially more remote, more rural places, get really affected by it.
Yeah.
You can't sleep at nights because it's really hot and you don't have AC or you don't have ventilation that works. So that makes it also challenging just to have a good night of sleep. But also the worry that comes with it. Everything is pitch dark, pitch black, and the lights too for the cars stop working.
Oh, really?
Yes, everything stops working. Everything.
So if somebody had like an electric vehicle here, they probably can't charge their car.
Probably not. And the lights don't work either. So we saw
Street lights, everything.
Yes,
just
nothing.
Pitch black.
So there were some accidents reported this week as well after the blackout. But overall, people are really tired because of the privatization of energy, and that is owned by private corporations, Luma, which is US Canadian. And this is just a sign of imperialism and Puerto Rico being a US colony that is completely disregarded. And even the response post Hurricane Maria in 2017 was terrible. People don't care. It's part of the US, but only when it's relevant to them. That they're not here to support the community. So who does that? Themselves. Communities here support one another. Communities here show up for each other. But they're tired also of the failed promises of politicians, corrupt politicians, I would add, that instead of showing up for the people, it's always profits over the people. But you see that there's a lot of beauty in community. So the neighbors will always tell you if you need to charge your phone, you can come here. There are some community centers that do the same. So people show up for one another, but it's not easy. And it comes also like at a high cost for people like me that work remotely. You have to cancel meetings. It's not like you can find anywhere to get Wi-Fi or charge your phone. We have solar energy in the house where I live. That means that we do have a generator, but eventually it runs out. And if it's not sunny, if it's cloudy like today, it won't charge. So a couple of weeks ago, I was without electricity for 2 days. No electricity, nothing. Like,
how did you survive?
I went to Walgreens to buy like lamps, and you just like learn how to live
the
with
old school traditional way.
You learn how to live with it, which is like the unfortunate reality. And the worst about that is that you never really know when it comes back because there's a lack of communication. So you're just there waiting for it to be fixed. And for me, it's normal. Like I got used to it, but I don't even want to censure my experience because Puerto Ricans have been living through this for many, many years. And I just think of those that are not as fortunate, vulnerable and marginalized communities that truly rely on it for income, for food, for health, and many other things. And it's just very unfair and it's repetition and nothing improves. Even if people protested in the past, nothing changes.
Today we've had the chance of kind of to go to Vieques and see people there. We also were able to kind of engage with local people there asked him about the recent blackout that happened, and also see kind of how they get electricity to an island like that. We ran into an individual actually who kind of said something similar to it. He's kind of used to it now.
Yeah.
So he created a preparation plan for himself, which is something he also mentioned it would have been nice for Puerto Rico to have in terms of having a preparation plan when something like this happens, what is in place. So he has solar panels as well in his household, to where the recent blackouts that happened, he wasn't really affected. He just, the power went out, his solar system kicked in. So it kind of shows, a lot of resiliency. And in terms of like local mutual aid groups, solar cooperatives, there's a Solar Solutions, I think, company in Vieques right now that's pushing to help people with that. But in terms of something that I think is important to address, you mentioned about decolonizing.
Yes.
And I see on your shirt, which is a lovely T-shirt. In terms of that, how is that kind of associated to the energy crisis right now? Is it a unique aspect of it, or what can be done to ensure that Puerto Rico gets the resources it needs and ensure people don't continue having this problem?
Yeah, it's all about decolonization because climate justice is intimately tied to social justice as well. And if you think of it, Puerto Rico is a U.S. colony. It's called a territory, but it's just a fancy, nice way to say that it's a modern day colony where Puerto Ricans are residents and hold U.S. citizenship.
Yeah.
But if they live here and not in mainland U.S., they cannot vote for the president. They have a representative in Congress, but with no voting power. So it's very performative. That is, in terms of representation, there's none.
Yeah.
The second aspect is that the representation that is there, the political representation, the politicians are very often corrupted. So people really lack trust in that aspect. They're the ones that, for example, launched the Act 60, which allows rich foreign investors to come live here 6 months out of the year, not pay taxes. What did this lead to? It led to an increase of living expenses. So many Airbnbs, more tourism, more displaced of local communities and indigenous communities, more gentrification.
Wow.
So that adds to the already burden that is with the infrastructures. There is federal government funding that goes into that, but it's not being seen or shown in terms of the project and in terms of improving the infrastructures, because instead of fixing the roots of the issue every single time, they just add a band-aid. So that will never be sustainable. You mentioned like solar energy, which would be really great, but it's so pricey and expensive. And I think that there's resistance to change as well, or maybe mistrust in that aspect too. There's also the lack of dialogue about it. You don't hear much about Puerto Rico from climate justice activists based in the US, but it's also should be their fight because this is supposedly part of the US, but we don't hear much about it. And they should also hold their administration accountable for how it's given up on. There's, of course, a dehumanization aspect to Puerto Rican. They're seen as second-class citizens, and this for centuries now. Puerto Rico has never been independent because it was part of Spain. Then it was part of the U.S., so it was never independent. Women were forcibly sterilized. There's been a lot. The bombings in Vieques too. It was tested as for the Navy for many years.
Yeah.
And it led to high rates of cancer, to biodiversity loss, to also gentrification and many different issues. So when you think about it, colonialism, climate injustice, and social injustice as well, or also health or food security, which is also something big here in the island, because everything needs to go through the US before getting here. So anything that can be imported, even if it's from the Dominican Republic, which is literally next door, has to go through the US because of the Jones Act. So that means that the produced products are less fresh and takes more time to get there. So even in terms of food, and it's not that great.
You mentioned something that is actually important to think about. Spanish is a language here,
Yes.
and thank God I'm able to kind of have slight conversations with people here and there. So in moments of crisis, I think language really matters because I feel like it's actually
Yeah.
helped me and my co-host. We went out to Vieques. We were able to use a little bit of Spanish to
Yeah.
communicate with the locals there. How do you choose your words when speaking for people who've been silenced or displaced?
Well, I think that we don't speak for people, we amplify their voices. I think that they
Mm,
already have a voice and they're tired of speaking over and over and not seeing concrete change.
hmm
So that's where you have to be an ally. Being an ally means that you amplify the voices of those that are marginalized and those that do not necessarily have access to the same privileges. I have the privilege of having a platform. I have the privilege of being a public figure and I live here. So for me, it's very important when you move to a place that is not your indigenous land to learn about the history, to learn about the culture, to learn about the people, to speak the language. I do not understand people that move here for tax incentives, never make an effort to learn about Puerto Rican history, culture, or just interact with the locals. Just like when you went to Vieques, I did the same. I did a study there. I spoke to the locals. I saw how gentrification was affecting them. I saw how high rates of cancers were affecting them and their families. So I share those stories whenever I get a chance. And because I live here, it's my duty, it's my responsibility. I cannot take advantage of living on such a beautiful paradise, but remain silent on the issues that we're facing. And whenever I speak up against the power outages, it's not in a way to complain, because a lot of Americans do that.
Yeah.
Complain, oh my God, the power outage is so annoying. Bro, Puerto Ricans have been going through this for many years now. Like, if you're annoyed, then call out the government, call out the privatization of energy, of how Luma is completely disregarding people just for the sake of profit.
hmm
So that's what it's important. It's to really like amplify the voices and the grassroots realities and speak with the people and share their stories.
Wow, you are exactly what we call a voice of change, right? Because you are definitely amplifying those voices. Um, and in terms of 2025,
Yeah.
what do you see like mobilization looking like? Not just like in the streets, but in
Yeah.
the boardrooms, either be on social media or in daily life. Like, how do you see that progressing now in 2025, as well as the long-term advocacy for the people that might not be heard or
This is,
displaced? 'Cause
yeah,
you are a voice of change.
yeah,
You
this is
know,
the
so
time. This is definitely the time we're seeing the crackdowns on many of us activists, immigrants, because of our voices. We're also seeing that the social media platforms are owned by the oligarchy, which means that there's a lot of censorship and content is getting filtered.
yeah,
But this is the time for us to be loud so that we can be louder than them ever. So that we're not forgotten. Because I think very often we forget that politicians or people in power are supposed to be representing us. They're supposed to be working for us, and that we should be demanding what is owed to us. And people tend to feel powerless, helpless, because of the fear that is also through legacy media. And I think that we need to go back to the roots of mobilizing and organizing, which is all centered around people, power, and the heart. So it's all about doing things from your heart,
mm,
from a place where we're not powerless. We actually people have power. Revolutions maybe started with a few, but it's
yeah,
a collective that always overthrows.
hmm
So we have to remember that individually we might not accomplish so much, but collectively we will.
yeah,
Whether that be online or in person, whether it be mobilizing with your communities. Right now, a lot are in vulnerable positions. Immigrants, LGBTQIA plus folks, people of color, voices of dissent, voices that support the liberation of Palestine and how it's interlinked to uh, the involvement of the US as well. We're seeing reproductive justice going backwards. So there's a lot of interconnected issues that are we're seeing a back roll in our rights. So now is the time to also build transnational solidarity, because we can learn a lot from movements in Africa, from movements in Southwest Asia, from movements that have seen authoritarianism, that have seen fascism, and have been able to dismantle it. Dismantle it. So this is what we have to focus on, whether it be the small steps where you mobilize with your community at the local level, or whether it be at the international level, going to high level spaces like COP, like the United Nations General Assembly, where you make your voices heard and you don't become part of the system. It's very important to not become complacent and content with how things are, but disrupt for the right causes, because it's only through disruption that we will enable change. And that also comes from taking risks.
Yeah.
Because it's not by saying basic stuff that you'll enable change. So let that voice out, let that voice shine, organize in community, mobilize internationally, and learn from struggles for liberation worldwide.
Wow, that's definitely, you're definitely a voice of change. You said that very well. And touching on the point about Africa, like right now, the voice of change, one of the things that we are focusing on doing is wetlands restoration, specifically Bangua wetlands, which is actually back in my hometown, Limuru. There's a wetland that's currently been degraded. It's not being protected. So we're trying to push first for the legal protection of it. And then after that, push for development and maintenance of the area. Because that wetland is very important to that community and people realize that. So that's a pillar we're doing with Voices of Change, as well as empowering green mobility. We're doing right now a project on addressing underserved areas with this shift to electric vehicles. And seeing how are those areas benefiting or not benefiting from having charging stations in their community when those people don't drive electric vehicles. So why do you need to have those electric vehicles there? Because it creates an influx of people who are just randoms into those communities when they're not from there, right? So something we're kind of working on as well. We're probably having a white paper published out by the end of next year. We'll see how it goes. But here on the Voices of Change, we have this special thing that we do. It's called Free for the Founders.
Okay.
Blue Fi. So first one we're going to start off with today. So we do it like this. Just three things. So I'm going to say two, and then you have the hot topic, which is the third one. You say it can be anything you want.
Okay.
So first one we have for today is: a crisis is not the absence of power. It's the test of who wields it and for whom. That's our number one for the founders. Now, number two. Shout out to the deuces. Energy isn't just about electricity. It's about dignity, safety, and trust. Now, number three, the hot topic. Yasmina, what's a topic you think deserves more urgency right now? Or it could just be anything at all. Hot topic number three for the day.
That none of us are free until we're all free. That we need to move from individualism and individualistic societies, because that's not what we were meant to be as a human species. That systems of exploitation like capitalism, the patriarchy, are all the death of us, and that the Western Empire is falling right now as we speak, and we're seeing the signs. So again, stand up. When you stand up for yourself, you stand up for everyone behind you.
That is well said. Hot topic of the day.
None of us are free until we're all free.
Hot topic of the day.
All struggles are all interconnected.
Wow. So comes to an end of our conversation here today.
Awesome.
Yasmina, thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
It's been your voice, your focus, and just your life's dedication and what you're doing with Politics for Her and Climate Sirens. It's very inspiring to me.
Thank you.
It's also inspiring to a lot of people that I know. And where can people follow your work? Where can people be in touch if they are interested in being part of your organization?
Yeah.
Where can they look that at?
Okay, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Yas Benz. You can follow Politics for Her and Climate Sirens on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It's Politics for Her with the number 4, and Climate Sirens, just like it's spelled. And find us there.
And if Puerto Rico teaches us anything, is that people will find light.
Yes.
Even when systems go dark.
Love
and that's something I've come to realize here after being here for a few days. It's that people will always find that positive light in
Always.
everything that's going on. So
listen, they love to live. They love to live life, and this is something I love so much about this place.
San Juan is a beautiful city, y'all. So if you've never got the chance to check out San Juan, we'll bring you there.
Come to Puerto Rico, but respect the locals.
True. Yeah.
Respect the law.
Respect the culture. Respect the culture. Service for humanities.
And give us
Wait, no,
money.
culture for service, service for humanity. Sorry, I almost said that wrong.
Give us money.
Now,
Think now.
that comes to the conclusion of our conversation today. And if you really enjoyed listening to this episode today, go download the Alive Podcast Network to find other Black and Indigenous hosted podcasts on there. It's Alive Podcast app. Download it on App Store, Android, wherever the hell you get your apps from. Go download it, and you can go subscribe to our channel. Follow us. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Sustain the Story. Remember, at Sustain the Story. Anyways, Yasmina, it's been a pleasure having you on
Same here. Thank you for having me.
And peace out, y'all. What's the change?
Awesome. Yeah.